Welcome to the OG Unfiltered podcast with your hosts, Omar DeBerry and
Moki Escobar.
Mogi Escobar. That's a new one right
Yeah.
there. All right, check this out. We like to, first of all, do a little housekeeping. So we're going to thank you people, the people that out here subscribing, the people that's out here liking, and the people that's out here sharing these videos. We appreciate y'all.
hmm
And for those who haven't did that yet, but are thinking about doing that, we'd appreciate it if you do just go ahead and do those things because we're a brand new podcast and basically you don't know us from a hole in the wall.
Right.
But for you to show us any intentions, any feedback, anything is greatly appreciated because we feel like we're holding conversations that need to be held.
Need to be held. Yes.
Okay? So I appreciate that. And trust me, this channel, subscribing to this channel, you're going to get content. You're going to get more than just this podcast. You know what I'm saying? I have the captain on board. He took a little hiatus last week. You know, I'll let him explain why he left.
Right.
Then I got Uncle Beezy. I finally got him on board. You know, he's a little tough to get with because he's kind of surly and ornery and all that
Right.
garbage. But I got him on board. So Uncle Beezy's here now. The G Chronicles is coming.
Yes.
So pay attention. We're gonna have more than just this podcast
Right. This is podcast.
on this channel.
And every now and then you gonna have Moki Escobar. You know what I'm saying? Spitting his shit. It might be inside the car or just anywhere. Why decide to have some thoughts? You're gonna have that too. So we're gonna just give it to you raw. Give it to you day by day.
There it is.
Right. It's coming. And we
Just
just ask that you just just subscribe, click like, comment, and
mhm.
hey, we're gonna say it's things that people be thinking they're scared to say. We're gonna say it.
That's right. And so
hmm
today, let's segue right into the topic. Topic of choice right now today, something that I've seen on the internet a lot, something that people have been, speaking about and been fighting for. And it needs to be discussed in a real way. So I want to discuss it in a real way today, and it's reparations.
Reparations, yes.
Yes. So we want to talk about reparations for African Americans, or what some people call African descendants of slaves, what some people call foundational Black Americans,
hmm Foundational keywords.
however you want to put it.
Right.
Okay? We want to talk about reparations for those people who have been systematically oppressed
hmm
throughout the years and have been given the short end of a stick for years. We want to talk about one, should we have it at all? And two, if we should have it, what should it look like? So we're going to start with the, do you agree with this reparations plan at in the first place? Do you agree that we deserve reparations or not?
Right.
And then we will move on into whether we agree with it or not, what it should look like.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
So I'm gonna start with my partner because I'm sure my partner's got a lot to speak on this. And
Okay. Right.
just give your feelings.
Okay. Before we start with everything you just said,
Hmm.
let's go back to the initial reasons why we need reparations or it was considered in the first place.
Hmm.
Um, Ever since the Civil War, reparations was promised to us, but it was never delivered. You got systematic racism, everything that we went through. I mean, the Tulsa, Oklahoma bombings, Rosewood in Florida. I mean, just all over the country. There's been things targeted against blacks, and it has put us back systematically, financially. It put us back behind. So when you say reparations and everything, they have a system. They're proposing $350,000, I mean, $350 million for reparations, but that's still not enough to even that gap between the white and black people. In order to get that gap, it's like $850 million, but they're proposing 350 million. So I mean, it's a start, but it's not going to close the full gap. But even still, even at 350 million per person, that's a descendant of slavery, they still fighting against it. And I always believe that there's power in numbers. Whenever you have the majority speaking out and speaking against it, then things can start turning and things can start happening. But that's not the case. You had only 4% of Americans in 2000, 4% of white Americans, to make no, sorry, 4% of white Americans that were for reparations. Fast forward to 2018, that number shot to 16%. Now in the present is just 30%. So when you sit there, I mean the reparations, the numbers that people that's for it is so small. And then you got black people, they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about TikTok. They're thinking about other things. They're not even thinking about it because everybody's for themselves. And I think, me personally, I think reparations is pretty much a situation where how long do we need to wait for this? Because obviously we're not gonna get it. And if we do get it, how much longer is going to take? I don't think it's gonna be in my lifetime. To be honest with you, I'm 52 years old. I don't think it's gonna be in my lifetime. I mean, maybe if it does happen, maybe my children, my grandchildren, if it keeps going, I mean, the numbers are increasing year by year with the amount of whites that's supporting it. But I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. So what do I think? I think that um, I think black people need to start doing for themselves and stop waiting around for reparations.
Hmm.
Do for yourself. Go out there and form together. Saying let's get our own banks. Let's just go out there and do what we have to do for ourselves and everything instead of just waiting around for the system. The same people who oppressed you is not going to be there for you. You got what's his name? What's his name? Bitch. I mean, not bitch. I mean, Mitch McConnell,
Mhm.
who said that he said he don't think that something that happened 150 years ago should be of concern about something that had no effect on the people present now. That the people that's present had nothing to do with that. The white people that's present had nothing to do with that. Hold on, Mitch. The problem with that is the white people that's present now is still benefiting from the after effect of slavery that happened 155 years ago, 150 years ago. It's they. That's the reason why we have an economic gap that's just wide, 850 million. That's the reason why, because of all the oppression and slavery. So the descendants of white people, the descendant of the slave masters, they're still benefiting from it. So how can you sit there and say that we had nothing to do with that? Yes, you did. I just think there's just an ignorant comment. Anyway, I talk enough.
Okay. Um, okay, when I think of reparations, okay, when I think of reparations, I think of it and in the actual what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a repair of a wrong that was done.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know what the wrong is. We know the wrong is slavery. But it just doesn't stop at slavery. Slavery was just the beginning of this wrong. This wrong travels on and it still happens to this day. If you pay attention to the way this system is ran, the system, like I've always said, wasn't built for us. It wasn't built for us to strive in. And in order to repair what we have dealt with, for years since 1555. From 1555 to present day. We're not talking the end of slavery because it goes further than that. And I will explain that. Now, you start at slavery, and you start at the fact that we were free labor, and you start at the fact that the majority of the country benefited off of this free labor and benefited off of the ideas that came out of this free labor. It benefited off of the discoveries that came out of this free labor. It benefited off of the intellectual property that came out of this system of slavery. Period, point blank. There are many people out here that invented stuff, that came up with ideas to make this country better, that wasn't given even a benefit of the doubt that they actually did this. It was just basically stripped of them because they were considered property. Now, when you wind all of that together, you got to think about it. They say that, okay, that was done years ago. That has nothing to do with the people today. Why would they pay for that? Well, this country would not be this country if not for slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yep.
Point
Blank.
blank. If not for slavery, if not for free labor, if not for free taking of intellectual property, this country would not be what it is today. And that is the bottom line. So, therefore, you do owe a certain amount to the descendants of those who toiled to help make this country what it is. Because the descendant of those who benefited from that toil are still alive.
Mm-hmm.
They're not dead. They're benefiting from daily. The system is what the system is. Now let's go past slavery. Let's move on to post slavery. And when you look at post slavery and you look at the institutional practices of this country, once they got black folks out of the political system where they could just run amok with the political system and how they wanted to run it, certain practices is that if they did not hamper the political power of blacks would not have happened. Certain practices that they allowed to just go on to this day, it still happens, keeps that wealth gap that was built between the two races, it keeps that wealth gap. It didn't shorten it, it kept it large. So, yes, black people deserve reparation. And when I say black people, I'm talking about those descendant of the slaves that were brought to America to make America what it is today. I'm not talking about those who were brought to Jamaica. I'm not talking about those who was brought to Brazil. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about those. If they want reparations, then in that case, that has to be between them
In there.
and the country that they was shipped to.
Right.
Their descendants were shipped to. It's as simple as that.
Right.
So all that argument about back and forth about who deserves reparation, who doesn't deserve reparations, it's a simple, clear cut thing. These arguments is just put out here. It's put out here in order to keep this thing
Going
confused
confused and divided.
so that people could say, well, we'll do a study about it. You don't need no
Ain't
more
no damn study.
studies. You know what
You
the
know the fuck you
hell
did.
is going on.
Right.
You know, you have people like Joe Biden who talks about systemic racism. He talks about it. So he knows that there's a system and there's a practice in place that keeps one race ahead of the other.
And he said also, not to cut you off, but
Right.
Joe Biden, he right now in current, he's talking about looking over it and thinking about it and researching it about the reparations. We don't need you to research it or look into it. Either you gonna give it to us or you're not. We I mean, these thoughts about it has been going on for years. Either you're gonna do it or you're not.
So you think about it this way: you got an entire system that was built on the backs of black people who were forced to toil in this country against their will in order to make this country what it was. Period. So if you got that now, and then you got a system of where you got a permanent underclass built because of this. Understand that. There was a permanent underclass built because of this. Now, if you look at when we first got out of slavery, and if you look at the fact that blacks was getting into politics, there was a reason why those blacks was ran out of politics. It's more than just a racist thing. They try to make it look like it's racist, white and black. No, it was a destruction of a system that was built to exploit the labor and the intellectual property of a certain set of people in order to make everybody else
Mm-hmm.
wealthy. Period, point blank. It's the bottom line. So if you look at that and you think of that in that way, yes, black people deserve reparations. But now, what should reparations look like? Personally, on my end, when I think of reparations, I'm thinking of repair. So if I'm repairing something ain't throwing money at it because that isn't what destroyed us. Money did not destroy us. When we came over here, we had no money. It wasn't like they stole money from us and that's why they. So reparations for me don't involve strictly a check. It involves correcting what you did to cause the problem. So if the problem is the wealth gap between blacks and the other race has to do with systems that were put in place by the other race in order to keep us down,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what need to be addressed. Because until that's addressed, nothing changes. Say for instance, if they give everybody a couple of $1 million apiece, that solves the problem. Does that solve the problem of redlining? Does that solve the problem of healthcare? Does that solve the problem of education? Giving everybody $1 million, does that solve any of that?
Well, no, it's not gonna solve it because most. Oh well, I'm gonna say most. I'm not gonna judge like that. But you got some black people, and I'm just gonna be. This is the OG Unfiltered, so I'm gonna just say it.
Mhm.
Some of you black people be on that nigga mentality. If somebody give you a couple $1 million, you gonna blow it on some bullshit. You're gonna take that reparations and blow it on BS. You're not gonna take it and start a business. You're not gonna take it and buy some land. You're not gonna take it and buy some stocks or bonds. You're not gonna do that. You're gonna blow on some bullshit. You're gonna go eat crab legs for about 5 years, spend on your baby mama so she can get damn green and red hair and all other bullshit that come along with it.
But
That's what you're gonna do with it. You're gonna take it and blow it
why is that?
because of ignorance, because of the mentality.
But why is that? Is that their fault?
Right.
Is that their fault? Or is that just how the system was built?
Oh yeah, of course. The system was built.
So if the
But they
system
got to
was,
learn how to come out that system though. They have to learn how to
but
say, hey,
how do you learn to come out of a system? How do you learn to come out of a system if you don't have the tools to learn how to come out of a system? And that's where I'm getting at. Giving me money is not going to solve anything because it's not going to correct the problems that they built. It's not going to correct our education system. It's not going to
Well,
correct or
I
it's
I mean, how I learned to come out of the system was I study and research because I mean I grew up in the ghetto too until I was 13 years old.
Mhm.
But I've learned myself to come out of the system, and the people who don't have the means and is poor to have a knowledge to come out of the system is up to other people like myself to spread the knowledge. Now, if they cannot grasp that knowledge and want to stay ignorant, that's on them. But you have to.
but it's not on them. And this is what I'm saying. It's not on them. We can no longer talk on that level where we're speaking about a people that was given the short end of a stick for a reason.
Hmm.
We cannot no longer speak on it's on them. You cannot fault a person for some shit that they was never taught. You cannot fault the person who was systematically pushed out of a certain shit. If you look at it and you dealt with the education of people, at
Hmm.
one point, black people was highly skilled, highly trained in different sort of trades.
Hmm.
Whether it was blacksmithing, whether it was plumbing, whether it was being a carpenter, it was highly skilled and trained in that. And that skill and train came through slavery and them learning that skill.
Hmm.
What was dismantled when slavery ended?
Well,
The beginning of those skills. They started pushing those people who had those skills out.
they pushed them
They
out
did that through,
and they attacked them and they went like, for instance, I'll give you an example of that. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. We had businesses, we had all kinds of stuff going on, and you had black people. I mean, not you had black people who were successful and thriving. White people didn't like it, so they went over there and they destroyed it because they was like in their mind, these niggas making more money than us, they doing better than us, so we have to do something about this. So I'm saying you're saying they went and
but
dismantled it
it's
with.
even deeper than that. It's even deeper than that. That's the outer shell,
Hmm.
destroying what they built.
Right.
The inner shell was how do we keep those people from ever keeping that practice up? And they did that through unions. And they did that through other things where they pushed the black people to the side,
Hmm.
not giving them the jobs in that. So now you don't feel like those jobs is worthy of you because they pushed black people so far away from it and they pushed other people in those places to where they don't feel like as a black person I could get ahead by doing that. If you think of a black person mentality, what do they think they could get ahead in?
Sports.
They think they get ahead in
Rapping.
sports. They
Rapping.
think they get ahead as rappers. They
Right.
think they get ahead as entertainment.
Hmm.
And that's it. They don't think no longer that I could get ahead by having a solid skill like being an electrician.
Yeah, and that's what they shown.
There are
They did that.
electricians
Yeah.
that live 30, 40, 50, 60 years and live comfortably on the fact that they know how to do this trade and they can always make money off of it
Hmm.
because it's not going nowhere. You see what I'm saying? But because of that, and because of the fact that, okay, they don't have a trade, they don't have the basic knowledge of how to make their money work for them. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Instead of working for the money, now they're behind.
Right.
And those things could be addressed in school. Those things are usually addressed through parent to child. But if one parent was stripped of that knowledge, how could they pass it on to their child? And if they ain't pass it on to their child, how do they pass it on to the next generation? See what I'm saying? So it's all a system. It's a system, a complete and utter surrounding of our people in which they say, we got them in this box, let's keep them here. And as long as they here, they're just useful enough to serve our purposes,
Hmm.
but they will never get ahead.
But how do we break that cycle?
You
Cause see,
break that, you break that cycle by breaking that cycle. What brought them to this point can get them out of this point. So if redlining got you to the point to where your neighborhoods ain't worth shit, then the destruction of redlining will get you out of that point to where your neighborhoods ain't worth shit.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
You see what I'm
I
saying?
grew up in a red
If a
neighborhood.
poor education system is the reason why you got here,
Hmm.
then a rich education would be the reason why you get out of that.
And see,
It's
reason why I
simple
asked
change.
about that cycle is because when you had that one person in the family who tries to break that cycle, they get looked at as a fucking black sheep, and then nobody else listens to them.
Listen, it
That's what I'm
will
saying. That's why I asked you, how
the
you break
shit
it.
will change when the overall system changes.
Hmm.
The system isn't built for you to scribe through this.
Right.
So going to school 12 years, K through 12, and then going to
I
school
know I'm the black sheep in my family.
and then going to school for 4 years in college
Uh huh. Right.
doesn't really change anything for you.
Hmm.
And if people see that it didn't change anything, then they will naturally build up a resistance to that.
Right.
And then that gets you where you was talking about. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if K through 12 was actually teaching what you need to be taught,
Oh, that nigga, hey.
what we were being taught in the beginning, when we first came out of slavery, we were being taught trades. We were being taught industries and things of that nature.
Oh.
That was part of it. Home economics was part of it. Even the crafts and stuff like music and all that shit, they took that out of the shit for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because you did not want people having a skill that was needed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, yeah.
You understand?
Grade school
Some
nowadays
some
just about
people
learning.
worked around that shit. We
Yeah.
came out with the we came out with the sampling and stuff like that. We was able to work around that.
Mm-hmm.
But we shouldn't have to work around that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put a system in place of reparations that actually address what causes our downfall, then we wouldn't have to work around that. So we start thinking of reparations in this manner, not the couple of $100 or a couple of $1,000, even a couple $1 million that we would get in a check, because that's not generational. That's us right there, and what we do on it, what we do with that couple $1 million, is going
See,
to affect the rest of the generations.
the
But if we actually no, if we actually repair what we're doing
mm-hmm.
and what they did to us, then that covers generations. Because what they tell you, to break a habit that you have for a certain amount of years, you have to go that same amount of years to break it, right?
Yeah,
So
somewhat. Yeah.
if we went 300 years of slavery, then it's going to take 300 years of reparations to change that. And that's not just a check, because a check is 1 year and that's over. No, we have to get a system into where we're given these advantages so that we can make up the gap.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah.
taxes, whether it's land
I don't think we should pay
ownership,
no taxes.
whether it's taxes, whether it's education, we have to address that in a manner
Mm-hmm.
to where we get back on top. Money has to be funneled for years, not for 1 or 2 years, for years. They have to funnel money into our communities where we thrive
Mm-hmm.
and where we live, so that there is no reason for us to walk out that land and come into the integration. Because you think about it, why did our ancestors ask for integration and not for separate but equal? So if you thinking integration, now you what you did is just like the Negro League, you absorbed into the Major League. And the Major Leagues forget everything that the Negro League did. The greatness of the Negro League. Except for if they wanna in once in little instances say, we respect the Negro League and what it did in this. That's nonsense. It absorbed you, and now your whole thing is absorbed into the mainstream. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you absorbing everything into the mainstream, you're losing your identity. If we're gonna make up that gap, we have to form an identity, and the only way we're gonna form an identity is if they reverse all of the bullshit that they put in place. There's no need for studies for that. Because that's another thing they love to say. We're going to do the study and why you need reparations. You know what the fuck is going on. You know why. we're in the position we're in. You know the practices that y'all been doing through credit, through um redlining,
Lining,
like
airline,
home ownership. Y'all know what y'all did to keep black
certain
people
areas.
out of
Yeah.
and to drive black people into a certain box.
Mm-hmm.
Correct it. There's no more studies needed for that. And we always talk about we want this this politician or that politician to do that. And this is where the hard part comes in because the politicians are not built. They're not built, they're not trained, they're not groomed to do that. They're groomed to do one thing: keep the system rolling. You understand what I'm saying? Even the so called radical ones, they get radical to a certain point, but they know they're not getting nothing done because they got to keep the system rolling. And if the system benefits you, why the hell are you going to switch it up? You see what I'm saying? So now that's where it comes in and takes work. And that's why you get these groups out here talking about I want to get reparations, we need a check. But they're not addressing why we need a reparations. You understand what I'm saying? They said, oh, because we was enslaved, and we need that. But they're not addressing what happened after slavery. Why did we close that gap? Because slavery has been gone since 18 what 70 something,
Mm-hmm.
1870
1865.
something,
1865.
1865. So 1865 to 2022 should be all right then. If you just talking about slavery as being a part of your reparations, and you deserve a check because those people was enslaved, that makes zero sense.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because our repair goes further than the end of slavery. It goes through Jim Crow. It goes through this so-called civil rights era. It runs right into today.
Right.
All of this stuff happens daily.
Mm-hmm.
There is no policies put out here that benefit us and us alone. Period. Politicians tell you daily, we're not doing just for black people because it doesn't benefit us and us alone. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we're back. We just had to take a quick break, make sure that this conversation keeps flowing because
Mm-hmm.
where were we at? We was at the point where I was speaking on how this system is actually a system. And in order for the change to happen, the system has to be broken down somehow. And if you are not a person that is being in a negative point of the system, why would you actually change the system?
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
And that even goes with our so called black leaders. That even goes with our so called revolutionaries.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, they are part of the system as well.
Right.
The system will, and it will input people in there that will seem to be going against them, but not truly going against them, in order to give you that illusion of opposition.
Right.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's willingly, sometimes it's unwillingly. Sometimes it's the greed of a certain person.
Agree to a group of people.
Or, yeah,
Yeah.
but this certain person starts the group and they agreed with a certain thing in mind. I want to get my stuff rolling.
Mm-hmm.
I see the end means for me, not really for everybody else, but I'm going to paint it as it's for everybody else.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell these things because it happens right in front of your eyes. It happens explicitly. Um, you got anything to say on that? Like,
Yeah. Earlier, well, in the beginning of this podcast, and also I think it was the beginning or before we started recording, I said I had mixed reviews on it.
Hmm.
The reason why I had mixed reviews on their thing, I agree with what you're saying, but also agree that we still have, because you have some black people that will take the money and do something well with it. Like I said earlier, you know, some black people who don't have that nigga mentality would take their money and start a business or invest in some land, buy land for their families. When land is one of the biggest wealth accumulators out there, generation to generation. But speaking of these politicians, Obama, for instance, y'all niggas know y'all love Obama. But anyway, Obama, he proposed $6 trillion for the Holocaust survivors, and they got that money because he said that it affected them systematically. When COVID happened, the pandemic happened, the government proposed think like $10 million, eight, nine, $10 million for all these stimuluses. So what's wrong with them doing the same thing for reparations? And people benefited from all that. They got my whole point is they had money to do all this other shit. So why in the fuck they couldn't do this for reparations? That's all I'm saying. Now, what black people do is if everybody get reparations, if all black people get reparations and stuff and everything, what they do with that money, that's on them. But don't punish me, a responsible black person who take that money and do something with it. That's going to go and benefit me and my generation from all the way down with it. Because you got to understand all the systematic things that happen stem from slavery and all the racist shit that's been going on that kept us systematically behind over and over and over again. We get kicked and shitted on, and it's kept us behind. That's all I'm saying. Now, am I agreeing with you? I think you made some good points. You made some very good points. That it should not just be money, but if it is just money, you got some black people that will do something with it, and some black people who will just do some nigga shit with it. Okay, so what's the percentage? In my opinion, I think the majority would black people would do some bullshit, but maybe the ones that do get the money can lead the way and show them, hey, this is what you do with it. Now, 1.1 or 2 million was proposed as 350 million per person. That's what's proposed, and that still ain't shit compared to what's needed. What's needed is 850 million to close that wealth gap between white and black people. That's what's needed by 850 million to make it even. Because for so long we've been behind because the effects of slavery and all this oppression has been going on. I remember I was growing up, um, when I was a little child. I'm gonna give you an example of redlining. So, example. Born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, a little northern city in northeast Ohio. And my parents, we moved to this little suburb called Garfield Heights. It was a suburb, but it was closer to the city, so it still had some urban shit going on to it, you know. And they had some redlining going on there. It was crazy. We were not allowed to go to Garfield City schools. We were still getting bused all over Cleveland. Why was that? Why were we paying taxes in the city of Garfield Heights, but we could not go to Garfield Heights City schools? There's another suburb in Cleveland called Shaker Heights, upscale. They got barriers around the city. They got barriers to keep blacks out, kind of like a Bensonhurst in New York. So that's what I'm saying. It's just it goes. They keep doing shit. I mean, reparations is one thing, but it's like a continuation. It's like you have a salt on the wound. You know how it is when you have a salt, you have a wound,
Mhm.
and you're not letting it heal because you keep on peeling the motherfucking scab off.
Mhm.
It keep bleeding. It never heals. You keep peeling. Every time you get some scab, or you keep scratching it. That's what's going on. They keep on peeling the scab off the fucking wound. They're not letting shit heal. But they keep doing shit. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, reparations can be, like you said, it could be stopping the bullshit they're doing, like the school systems and the redlining, stopping that. Stop. Whenever we go to banks, we don't get loans because we black. No matter how good the credit is, you got somebody white with fucked up credit, and they still get a fucking loan. But somebody black don't get a loan, even their credit is good. Explain that shit. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, reparations goals is more. It's vast. It's vast, and it's like nobody sees or understand that it's like other races. The struggle of black people ain't shit to them. They don't give a fuck because it didn't happen. It didn't affect them. It don't affect me, so I don't give a fuck. Fuck you. All right. I'm sorry.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
I'm
If
just I don't know.
reparation is vast, if reparations is vast, that's what you're saying. What I'm saying is not that vast. It's a systematic oppression that has been placed upon us.
Yeah.
And the government knows of this systematic oppression that placed upon us because they speak of it when they need votes.
Exactly. Yep.
So if you could speak on it and you know it exists, then you could end it. And it's as simple as that.
Let's go back to what we were
It
saying earlier about
it
that.
just goes
Yeah.
back to everything. If you get a comprehensive plan, an actual plan, into where this is how you deal with black people. Say for instance, I'm just throwing things out there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say black people no longer have to pay federal income taxes for the next 300 years because it was taught that in order to break a habit, you have to create a habit that goes the same amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So if for 300 years you was not given any benefit, then that 300 years you should be able to get that benefit in
Mm-hmm.
order to reverse it.
Right.
So okay, if you was being taken advantage of for 300 years, 300 years of no taxes, federal taxes, period.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Makes sense now. So now that's one thing that helps black people out. Another thing, if you was given land through the credit system, a simple thing that could be put in place is that all descendants of slaves get reimbursed for the interest that they paid on their land. And that for the next 300 years in the future, that they get no interest loans. These loans could be through the government.
Mm-hmm.
The government gives 3 point some odd billion to Israel every year. You see what I'm saying?
Every year.
They give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference between giving to Israel or giving to the people within your country who which if you say all boats rise when the bigger boats rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the lower boats rise and equal up, don't that help as well? So if you actively helping the lower, if you're dealing with housing, affordable housing shortages and things of that nature, if you're dealing with the welfare system, because the welfare system is basically built to keep you on welfare.
Of course. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you retool that welfare system to where it actually helps you get through your rough period and actually help you strive through certain educations, through certain investments, now these people will get on the welfare system and thrive through it.
Mm-hmm.
It should be empowerment zones. not gentrification, because redlining and all that stuff was a tool in which they used to gentrify areas that black people once held. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But if you, in the same instance, kill those gentrification tactics, if you killed those policies and practices that kept black people from owning homes and stuff of that nature,
Mhm.
then you actually allow them to gain wealth. Home ownership is a part of the wealth gap.
Yeah. Yeah. Really anything.
Credit is a part of the wealth gap.
Mm-hmm.
If you rework to get even the credit, if you gave them a one time break on their credit, amnesty, where now the government is responsible to pay back certain loans so that this person's credit can rise. Couple that with a government program education where they learn how to maintain credit and use credit properly. Think of how that solves problems.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And the penalty of not teaching them how to repay credit properly is they're gonna have to amnesty them again if they don't get it right. It will light the fire under your ass
Mm-hmm.
to make sure they get it right.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Put some teeth in that affirmative action. Because there's no teeth in that affirmative action. People laugh at affirmative action. People laugh at affirmative action because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Not anymore.
It really does
It
not
doesn't.
mean anything.
They spit those words out like it's like a
You talk about that
like a
equal,
pacifier.
yeah, you talk
Yeah.
about that equal opportunity employment shit. That
Mm.
means nothing to
Right.
nobody. Nobody gives a fuck about that.
Not no
A
more.
lot of these states got at will employment.
Yep.
They override all that equal opportunity bullshit.
The at will appointment is starting in the South, but it not now. A lot of northern states are picking it up because they see the benefit in it. Yeah.
Because it's a system.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't built for you. But if you want reparations,
Right.
you're gonna have to make it built for you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You're gonna have to change shit in it so that you can thrive in it. Not just a few of us, but all of us. Not just a few of us,
But
but all of us. Get it? Every last individual that is a product of slavery. And while I say product of slavery, I mean a descendant of those who was enslaved. Those of us who was unjustly, unjustly abused post-slavery. And until you can address those things, you cannot really address this reparations thing. It's just not going to be something that's logical. It's going to be something that they can keep out there in the public to keep you pacified that somebody's working on it.
and the thing about that, like they even throw obstacles in the way to even get reparations. You have to be uh, uh, um you got to be African American or descendant of slavery, which is 82% of Black Americans that's here in the country. Then they want you to prove that you are a descendant of slavery from 1860 to 1850. That to me, that's ridiculous. It's like they throw they even though you qualify, it's like they try to throw obstacles in the way. You know?
But truthfully, that is not actually that hard.
Oh no.
And I'm going to tell you how that's not that hard. I'm going to take myself for instance. Me, as an individual right now on this earth, could trace my lineage back to a slave. So if I could trace my lineage to a slave, everybody who's in my lineage is now a descendant of that slave. And that's period. Point blank in the discussion.
Mm-hmm. But see, you would do that. I would do that. She'd do that. But most black people are not gonna do that. They're not gonna take the time to do that, and they know that,
It's not
and they know.
it's not that hard though.
Right. We
It's
we know it's
it's
not,
it's not that hard,
but we talk
and
about.
you don't have to put the onus.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is the thing I'm talking about. If you really want to correct the problem, you correct it. You don't have to put the onus on the people to decide who is a descendant of a slave. That could easily be a database that's put out there. They know who were slaves.
There you know.
They got those records.
That's my whole point.
So the fact that they got those records, you can put them records out there. And it's as simple as that. You
Mm-hmm.
go in there and you know who you are
Mm-hmm.
based on that. You can trace yourself back to slavery. It's not that hard. So I'm not going to take those excuses that that's what they're going to do, try to pitch you from that. I don't get that.
Hmm.
I don't get that at all because most times you can tell by last names. We took last name
Last name.
of our slave
Those
masters.
plantations. Yeah.
Those our last names are not last names of our people from Africa.
No, hell no.
So
Of
therefore,
course not.
we took those last
The
names
Anderson
based off of
plantations.
slavery. So it's easy enough to figure out
Right.
where you got from.
Right.
I'm not taking that as a no. What I'm taking as the government needs. And because a lot of people like to put that one thing they say, well, I had nothing to do with slavery as a regular white person. But this country is founded
On
off
slavery.
of slavery.
And the wealth
So
built off slavery.
this
Their
country
ancestors benefit
is
off slavery.
responsible. If you consider yourself part of this country, you pay taxes, you're responsible.
And their wealth.
If you don't want to be responsible, leave the fucking country.
Right. Leave the country. That's the only way. Because
Go back to where you came from.
their grandchildren, their children, and everything is
You heard
benefiting
me.
from the wealth of slavery. So for you to sit
White
there and
people.
say that you don't have nothing to do with that, like
Mhm.
Mitch McConnell was talking about, I don't understand why something that happened 150 years ago, we had nothing to do with that. Yes, you did. Your ancestors had something to do with it,
Hold on.
and you're benefiting from it.
White people, you benefit from this country as being a country. It's this great because of slavery. You're responsible. If you don't like it, go back to where you came from. You ain't got to pay a dime. You work in their system.
Mm-hmm.
Take your ass back to wherever you came from.
Greenland, Europe, Iceland,
I don't give a
Spain,
fuck where it's from. The
Italy.
Caucasus Mountains. I don't give a fuck where y'all came from.
With
Because y'all didn't
that,
come from here. You're not Native Americans.
don't
So
get me started
at
on
the
that.
end of the
Please don't
day,
get me started on that.
if you don't
Fuck, no,
if
please don't do
you
that.
don't
That's another
feel
subject.
like you're responsible for this country which you benefit from, take your ass where you came from. That shit you like to tell black folks? Take your ass where you came from. Simple as that. You're responsible. It's period point blank irresponsible.
Yeah.
This country is based off of slavery. You're responsible.
Mm-hmm.
You're a part of this country.
Part of the
This is
country.
my country. I'm American.
Okay, well
And
then take everything that comes along with it.
there it is.
Slavery came with it,
And slavery came with it, and y'all need to address it.
and it need to be addressed. If you're silent, you're guilty, cause ain't no in between.
And that
Ain't no gray
goes
lines.
that goes for you so-called bigots, and that also goes for you people who so-called are part of the struggle until you gotta pay for reparations. Then all of a sudden you're not a part of the struggle.
Take everything that comes along with it. That's it. Everything that comes
Get
along with
it?
it. Yeah.
This right here, if you followed my plan, if you followed my ideas and you really put the onus on the government and stuff, you would find out who your friends are in this political system. You will really find out who your friends are
Oh yeah. Not and
in this world. Period. As
you find
as
out real
white people,
quick.
black
White
people,
black
regardless.
people, white black people, white people. You start talking about certain topics and everything. you find out real quick who your friends are. You gotta if you ain't talking about little stupid shit like that, little dumb ignorant shit, low level, low vibrational bullshit. You talking about some things that make you think that nobody has time for that. But they talk about some little stupid ass shit.
Mm.
But yeah, politics, religion. If you want to have a argument with a Negro, talk about politics, religion, and chitlins, and you make some enemies.
Yeah, the bottom line, and I'm gonna keep it short and sweet at this point. The bottom line is, as a country, you benefited off the blacks and off the backs of slavery. Period. You benefited off the backs of slavery. You need to account for that. You have set a system aside as a country, not as an individual. We're not talking individual now. As a country, you
Mm-hmm.
have set aside
The country,
a
yep.
system that keeps those who you made your country off of their backs a permanent underclass.
Mm-hmm.
You need to address that. Fuck a check. I want to get right. How did James Brown say it? I don't want you to usher me through. I'll kick the goddamn door open myself.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the chance to kick the door open my fucking self. And the only way you're going to get me to kick the door open myself is by changing this system so that it works for me in the way it's supposed to work for everybody. Stop telling me I need to pull myself up by my bootstraps. Make it so that I can pull myself up by my bootstraps.
And stop saying that this happened a long time ago. I don't give a fuck. It happened 1,000 years ago.
And it didn't happen a long time ago because motherfucking the 1960s, there's still motherfuckers walking around from the 1960s. It was happening then too.
Mm-hmm.
Stop that bullshit. We not talking about just slavery.
Yeah,
Jim Crow, we talking about all of that shit. It's been happening all the way. It's still happening today. Fuck out of here.
yeah.
There's still people walking
It's
around on this goddamn earth.
I know for a fact it did. 'Cause my mom, um, there was part of that northern migration. My mom moved to Cleveland at age 15, born and raised in Birmingham, and she told me some horror stories about some of the shit that happened in Alabama in the '60s. So yeah, like my partner said, this shit like in '60s, whatever. Yeah, it's been going on.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, they need to correct what was broken by them on purpose. And until they correct that, there is no reparations. A check is not reparations. I don't want to get by. I want to get over. Get it? I don't want to get by. I want to get over. Giving me a fucking check is just going to help me get by. It's not going to help my kids get over. Get it?
Change the system. Change the system. All the benefits that Caucasians are enjoying in America. Change the system so black people can also indulge in those same benefits.
Because I'm gonna give those who are not black folks that would benefit from what I'm talking about. I'm gonna give you a benefit for those. You could correct all that fucking bullshit you talking about when it comes to education and those loans and that loan practices that they were doing. Yeah, I could forgive student loans today, right? Everybody's student loans is white. That ain't gonna stop that debt slavery that's called student loans. You just introduce a whole brand new set of
And it
motherfuckers
never goes down.
that
Go
need student loans. So now, are you really talking about, and this is where I'm talking to those who talk about reparations, are you really talking about making it right for your people? Or are you just talking about making it right for you in the moment? Hmm? Are you talking about making it right for the future, or are you talking about making it right for you in the moment? Because if you're talking about a fucking check, you're talking about making it right for you in the moment. You're not fixing anything that's going to keep this shit from being whatever it is. Just like fucking wiping out student debt ain't going to do shit for future students because they walking right into that same predatory credit system that you walked into. That's what your ancestors is going to walk into. That same predatory lending system that you walked into. That same predatory system that kept you confined in certain areas that you didn't really want to be in. That same bullshit. That same poor ass education. They're going to keep you right there. Your future generation is going to be right there. You're just going to start the problem all over again. You're not resetting shit. It's time y'all wake up. Fuck out of here.
Set your alarm clocks, y'all. Wake the fuck up.
And with that being said, I just want to leave you with one last thought. And that is what I always say. I said from the beginning, you die once, but you live every day. Live your life to the fullest. I love the fuck out of you. Otherwise, I would not be passionate about helping you. I wouldn't give a fuck. I'd be all right with just myself getting over.
Yeah.
I love you. Peace.
Peace.